The Pacific geoduck, this large saltwater clam, is found in coastal British Columbia.
Over the last 40 years, they've gone from an oddity used for crab bait to one of the most valued seafoods in the world.
Once used to make chowder on BC ferries, this king of the clams is now found in high-end restaurants all over Asia.
But still, it's virtually unheard of in Canada.
Rob and I are going to do what we can to change that.
I'm Robert Clark. As a chef, I have spent my entire career in the pursuit of sustainable seafood.
I'm Carmen Ruiz Laza. As a consumer, I've made sourcing local Canadian seafood my mission. Rob and I are going to take you on a journey. We're going to meet the men and women that bring the sea to our tables.
Dig in, let's go!
I might not know a lot about geoduck, but I know where you go to find clams: the beach.
Unfortunately for Carmen, most geoduck live a little bit deeper than the shoreline.
You think we're going to find a geoduck out here?
We're not going to find a geoduck here.
Now, a geoduck shell is that huge.
Yeah.
And I have to confess, it's rather a silly looking clam.
And their look is one of the obstacles that we need to overcome to convince more Canadians to actually give it a try. Like, most of it's exported at the moment. It's so important for us to keep more at home.
I'm looking forward to it because I want to get over the giggles with this clam, right? Is that a geoduck?
No. There's one, Carmen.
To find ourselves some geoduck, we're going to have to take a little trip to Qualicum Beach on Vancouver Island.
Evan Scoffings is a first-generation geoduck diver, but his wife Annie's father was one of the original license holders.
Evan invited Carmen and I to his house in Qualicum Beach so she could try geoduck with his family.
Oh my God, it's such a pleasure to meet you in person.
Nice to meet you, Robert. Yeah.
Finally.
Carmen, nice to see you.
I'm Annie.
Carmen,
Hi, nice to meet you.
I'm not going to pay attention to Evan at all now. Oh my God. Levi, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Robert.
So you're down there, and what are you looking for in order to find your geoduck?
We call them geoduck shows. So that's the siphon. So that's the only little bit you see sticking out of the sand.
wow.
Really, it has two holes in it. So when I cut it, you'll see it's sort of almost like a figure eight, right? So there's two holes to the siphon, an in and an out. So it sucks water in, goes through the guts, spits out the
And so this whole body is hidden?
So it's like this, basically, and this would be the sand, right?
Oh my goodness.
And this would probably stretch, if this stayed a little longer, like it would really stretch out, right? So this guy was probably down, I mean, I don't know, he's probably down that far. This really stretches out. So if any predators come along, their only natural reaction is just to do that into the sand. So, you see this little show in the sand, and yeah, if you touch it, it'll react, and then you try and work that stinger, we call a stinger, the high pressure water line, down around them without actually hitting the clam. You want to liquefy the sand around it and pull it out as gently as possible, but also do it because you want to get as many as you can while you're down there.
So how long have you been diving?
I've been fishing, diving for, I think this is my 16th year.
So someone watching, let's say, what does it take to be a geoduck fisherman? From beginning to your table. What is the process?
You have to have a certain level of experience of just being a sport diver, just to be comfortable with actually being a diver. I'm able to dive on a hose with a compressor from the boat to about 110 feet and work. Then you actually need a job. You need somebody that has a place for you, which is like probably the hardest part. Generally, as I said, you sort of have to get in at the bottom, be a bit of a deckhand, do that stuff first, learn the job and sort of see how it all works, and then you can sort of evolve into the diver position if it works for you.
What do you want to see with this product in Canada?
In order to get a hold of it, just maybe reserving a little more for the local market. I think you said it kind of has to come from us. We have to have a want for it. It's just something that hasn't been on our radar.
All right, so this is how you would prepare it at home?
Yeah, yes. I mean, I prefer it thin. It's any way you like it, right? Some like it thicker, some like it thinner.
So I'm the official taster. I have to taste it before and make sure it's good enough to give to Carmen.
The thin's good for. Yes.
It's sweet and salty at the same time. Like I can feel the sea water just bursting from the flesh. This tastes like, well, it's the ocean. I'm tasting the ocean.
Yeah.
Of course, I've had this
But the
flavor
sweetness,
before.
like it's, you know, like oysters are briny, where this is sweet. Like it's a sweet finish. Are you gonna have some?
As for Evan's daughter, Joy, she's not quite sold on Geoduck yet.
Even when I started using it in my restaurants, I had to develop a few tricks to get people to try it.
Now I'm gonna show you a trick I used to do.
Okay.
So this, I'd cut it like this part of it, and incorporate this in a dish. And it would just be like a clam, whatever. People would think this is a mushroom. Like, oh, this is so good.
It does look like a mushroom.
I've never had Geoduck. Yes, you have.
Evan's favorite way to serve Geoduck is in a ceviche.
Give them a stir in there, and there's a lot of lime juice in there. So, you know, we just want to let that, the Geoduck and the...
I can stir. That's one thing I know how to do.
You need your own cooking show. This is like...
Okay. Are you so hungry? Well, come on. Mosey on up. That is good.
Tomorrow, we're going to be heading out on the water to meet up with Evan and his crew.
But for now, I'm happy to have finally tasted some Geoduck. Evan has to get up at the break of dawn.
He has a buyer who needs a certain amount of Geoduck today, so he needs to get started early.
Rob and I, on the other hand, decided to catch a later boat with former Geoduck diver Jamie Austin. Jamie was a diver for nearly 40 years. He's now the president of the Underwater Harvesters Association and knows just about everything there is to know about this clam.
Well, I started diving for sea urchins, sea cucumbers, and geoducks in the 1980, 81, and at the time I didn't even know what a geoduck was.
How did the fishery start? Like, who was the first one to go, oh, look at this geoduck?
They were found in Washington State intertidally. There's a bar outside Brennan, Washington, that is called the Geoduck Tavern. And it's got, you know, it was the first place, and legend has it, the first place they brought geoducks up on the beach. In the early days, we didn't make any money, and the price per pound was really low. And there was one crab fisherman out of Ladysmith that we were harvesting some quality out of Ladysmith Harbor in the early days, and it wasn't very good. And we were trading geoduck for crab. Yeah, and he was using it for bait in his crab traps.
When geoduck was worth pennies to the pound, things were a lot more dangerous.
All our boats used to be old wooden trollers or something that nobody really wanted anymore, and someone could buy them cheap and you would turn them into a dive boat. The airlines are better. They're floating. We used to have these cheap airlines that if you got too far out, it used to kink off and you would have no air. We had a boat once that sank when the diver was underwater, and he saw the boat. He came back to the boat and it was underwater.
All that changed when the industry moved from a derby fishery to a quota. Rather than being limited by time, each geoduck license is now limited by a maximum number of pounds they can harvest in a year. This is referred to as their quota.
It changed the business completely. We didn't have to work if it was blowing a gale force because you had a quota that wasn't going away. You'd do it tomorrow when the weather was better. So people didn't go out and risk their lives.
You know, just looks like quite a strong animal, right?
For a diver, monitoring your depth and the amount of time you spend underwater is critical for your safety. The deeper you go, the less time you can safely stay under.
Before the industry moved to a quota, divers would constantly push their bodies to the limit to try to harvest as many geoduck as they could in the short allocated window.
Many divers paid the price for that.
We had a number of times where you get skin bends, or you can get actual bends, and you know, that's serious stuff. The bends is excess nitrogen in your system, and you're coming up to the surface with too much nitrogen. Your body doesn't have the ability to off-gas the nitrogen fast enough, and nitrogen will locate in your joints generally. That's why it's called the bends. You can't bend a joint, and as you're coming up, of course, with pressure, the bubble will expand in your joints, and it's very painful.
Jamie himself suffered more than one serious accident.
I had decompression sickness, and I lost my balance for a year. I was in the chamber in Vancouver twice, and so I was bent fairly badly, and the bubbles that located in my system ended up in my brain. So they did dissipate with the chamber treatments, but yeah, it was a bit of a warning. because they're quite firm and
sharp.
yeah, and short.
And so why do you keep these?
They count the rings, and then that can determine the age of the product. And when they age, that they cut the shell in half, and then they can do the side version of that and look at the side rings. And the hinge is something that holds the shell together. This is not the same two pieces, but they would be like this in the wild, and this is all covered with belly meat, and then of course then the siphon comes out here.
Yeah, it's the crew just kind of doing laps around you, Mike, there. They're just going to come along the port side here, so you're nice and clear there.
We wanted to make sure we were harvesting sustainably, and we were harvesting within the guidelines of conservation, and so that's why we've adopted this very low extraction rate of less than 2%, and to ensure that the fishery's around for long time.
As much as the industry has grown, Jamie would like to see more geoducks being sold in Canada.
We've got lots of divers that are in their 20s and 30s, and it's a good job. And I mean, I go to lots of these fisheries meetings, and a lot of the fishermen are old. I mean, we have some people in our business that are third generation, and their grandfather was a diver, their father's a diver, and now this son is a diver, and the sons are just in their 20s. So that's 3 generations that are still in the fishing business. And so if you don't have young people, who's going to catch the fish?
Evan and his crew are young and busy. I hope they'll let Rob and I get our hands on some fresh geoduck. Good morning.
By the time we arrived, Evan was suited up and ready to go.
Okay, there's Evan dressed for action.
Is it hot, Evan?
Yeah.
Is it hot in there?
Oh, it's pretty warm already. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm claustrophobic just looking at that suit.
You know, I remember getting Patty certified to go diving, but this is freaking me out. This is not at all what I did. And can you imagine? That's your lifeline.
Geoduck boats have 3 crew, 2 divers and a tender.
The divers take turns underwater. Each shift lasts for 2 to 3 hours.
It's the tender's job to haul the harvested geoduck aboard, crate them, pack them, ready for transport.
So Jamie, tell us what's going on here. What are we looking at?
So they're coming back with a full bag, and they have underwater communications, so that the microphone is probably inside the wheelhouse, and they'll say, I'm bringing a bag back, and then that's what happens. There's 2 bags, right? Yep. Empty, full, drop off the full one. The now diver is off filling out the empty one. And in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, they'll come back and drop that off again. They're fishing to the market. That's what the boat quota system has done. They're fishing to an order already. So it's not really how much they're going to stay in the water. It's the 2 divers will divide up the pounds and say, I'm going to do, 10 cages each or something, and a cage is 52 pounds.
Paisley is Evan's tender. She's young, but it's obvious she's a dynamo.
This is my 2nd year out. I was working in the Queen Charlotte last year, so this is my first time working up in the Gulf. And I'm 23 this year, so I am one of the youngest. It's just kind of important to make sure you always know where your diver is. You can see their airline is clear and there's no debris or anything in the way that's going to catch on it. They have a comm box, so they're always able to communicate with one another and kind of let us know where they are if they're bagging off the geoducks, so we can have the bag up in time.
And they alert you incoming, and then you just... So tell us about...
It's just giving me the alert.
Oh, so now it's happening!
It's happening!
And let's watch the girl in action. Oh my God! That's a lot of clams.
But look how much care and respect, doing every step that they're doing right now is to maintain the quality.
I've learned so much being out here, and working on the water is just like, it's really life-changing because you can work with so many new people, and it's just a really changing environment all the time. We have new places that we're always looking at and diving in, so it's really neat.
But that's your future.
Yes.
It's to go be a diver.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That's conviction. There's your answer.
Oh yeah.
While Evan is harvesting underwater, his 2nd diver, Mike, is up top keeping an eye on things.
Oh my God! What?
Look at that!
Wow!
Oh, look at the color.
Holy
Look
cow.
how
Oh, that's
beautiful,
nice right
beautiful.
there. We're gonna get showered
Yeah.
by real sea
There it is. Woo! Look at all this. Holy cow.
This one's a bit younger. Shell's very thin. Has some years on them.
So what do you see when you're diving?
When I see sometimes nothing, we'll take a cannonball, drop it, and we'll see an indent, a divot. When we drop the cannonball, when we stimulate it, the geoduck sinks down, and then we see.
Oh, then you see a divot.
We take our stinger, our water hose, dig around it to break the seal, and then the geoduck will pop up.
Oh my God, look at the size of this guy.
My job's always been taking the rubber bands off the geoduck.
Here, Mike, show us how to do it.
Up north, this becomes the sport. How fast can you do it?
Oh my God.
I get motion sickness. What the hell am I doing?
I was so impressed with Paisley, I decided the least I could do was give her a hand.
So of course your thing is to get these out of the sun as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see you're working fast. It's like a puzzle.
My experience with diving is limited, but I know that it's hard work.
Evan's been down for a bit over an hour, and he's filled his order for the day.
Evan must be exhausted.
I have to say, we're so impressed. I mean, you look happy.
Oh, this is as good as it gets, really. You know, we're out here, this beautiful weather, close to home, lots of friends, so.
Seeing what you do, and like for me, I mean, I've had the opportunity to like touch, taste, cook with the geoduck over 20, 25 years, but to see it that fresh come up like that is joyous. This little bag of shining delight.
Well, that's
like
how we see it. So really nice to have that and share that experience.
Now that Evan is done for the day, it's time to head to land and have our catch processed and accounted for.
So right now what we're doing is validating the geoduck. So, I mean, on the boat, as they're harvesting it, they're keeping a track of how much they're getting. And then when it comes on shore, they have to pay a third-party validator to just guarantee that the weights are right, because they have a quota system. So basically they're subtracting, they're minusing what they got today from their total allowable catch or their quota, and they'll keep track of that until it gets to zero. And that's just another one of the tools that they use to ensure that the fishery is well managed, which helps with the sustainability efforts.
Brought to you in part by Ocean Regenerative Aquaculture and CKR Seaweed. Your Nation's Table is brought to you in part by Mission Hill Family Estate Winery.
Back in Qualicum Beach, we've decided to host a geoduck feast for local divers and their families.
To help me out, I've invited my old friend, Chef Bobby Milheron. He's the executive chef of several Vancouver restaurants and one of the few Western chefs that serves geoduck on his menu.
This is how one would buy them.
They'd be in a tank, and some tanks will be lying down. Some tanks, they have little dividers, so the geoduck is actually presented like this.
If you look here, the skin is just you're gonna be able to peel it right off, and that's what you're looking for.
Okay, I'm gonna be between the dueling knives here. I'm gonna just watch.
So take a look at that.
Wow.
So these are on the inside. So if you've got the courage to go and get yourself a geoduck, your fishmonger would do this for you. Like there's two very different textures and
Absolutely. So the body meat comparative to the siphon. So right around here, this is the body meat, and it's going to be quite a bit softer. So cooking this one is a lot easier than the siphon.
And look how thin it is. You can see light through it. That's a very good slice.
The goal is I still want to see my knife. So when it's raw like this, you really want to go as thin as possible, just because it could become quite chewy.
the key is the quality and the taste of the geoduck is so special. You really don't want to do a lot to it.
The guests are starting to arrive.
Which means Bobby and I have a lot of work to do.
So we're just going to create some salads. We got Bobby's made some wonderful clam, like a clamato juice, out of the bodies of the clams, of the geoducks. Calling it a Canadian Caesar based on the Caesar the drink opposed to Caesar the salad. And then with the seaweed one on it, that is a ceviche or a crudo And then the heated dish, the saffron cream sauce, is from the meat that's around the shell. So there's just going to be a plane. We're just going to build little things to pass to the guests that come this evening. So yeah. But to make it truly BC, we're going to add some seaweed. When we get it from Oceans Regenerative, which is a company that's working towards sustainable seaweed production here in British Columbia. So now we have 3 very different dishes, like one just sort of very neutral, one acidic, and one very creamy. I think I better hurry up. I hear our guests arriving. That can't be good. Are we ready, Chef? What you're going to be enjoying this evening, because there's a dish with acid and a dish with cream, what's going to be perfect with this is the Mission Hill Reserve Rosé. It's a beautiful evening.
Rob, I have to say that when we first talked about Geoduck, and I had Googled it and looked at the photos, and I first saw this very interesting looking clam, I thought, I may not like that, but wow.
Is it ever good, right?
Wow.
That's why I wanted the opportunity to taste it, because it's just so sweet.
It's very odd, but very cool. And look, no eek factor holding it. You know me, I'm pretty
You've come a long way
squishy.
in a few days.